Hello, I'm Mark, and this is In the Round, On-Armature Bust Tutorial Series, Part 9, The Ears. The most important thing to remember when sculpting an ear is that it exists in 3 dimensions. This may seem obvious, but almost all beginners think only of the front face of the ear, rendering it as a bunch of convoluted swirls on a flat surface, barely elevated from the side of the head. It is crucial to think not only of the front of the ear, but also the back, to sculpt through the ear, articulating both sides simultaneously. It is equally important to recognize both the depth of the concha, the central hollow of the ear, in contrast with the elevation of the outer structures, and the angle of the ear off the side plane of the head. The structures of the ear are the concha, the tragus, the antitragus, the notch, the lobe, the helix, and the antihelix. Before we begin, I want to emphasize the importance of working on symmetrically paired features, such as eyes and ears, at the same time, bringing them both through the stages of blocking in, refining, defining, and finishing together. If you finish one completely before starting the other, they will almost certainly end up very, very different. If your placeholder ears are still pliant, you may start with them. If they've stiffened up, cut them off and replace them with fresh orange segment-shaped wedges of clay. It is also a good time to double-check your measurements. For this initial addition, it's probably best to err on too little clay rather than too much, as the helix is easy to build up with an additional coil. Remember to make sure the clay is well attached to the head before proceeding. The first step in sculpting the ear will be to establish a strong contrast between the depth of the concha and the elevation of the outer structures. Compress in deeply behind and above the location of the notch to form the concha. The depth of the concha should insert slightly into the side plane of the head. Shape the concha through to the back of the ear, starting to separate off the lobe, helix, and antihelix. Starting above the lobe, begin to separate the helix from the antihelix. It may be necessary to add a small coil to bring the curve of the helix around and over the top to the front of the ear, where it will curve back into the depth of the concha. Compress or carve away to separate the branches of the antihelix. Add small ovals of clay for the tragus and the antitragus, compressing in the notch of the ear between them. Establish the angle of these outer structures off the side plane of the head, making sure that the ear doesn't step up too abruptly. Build up the lobe if necessary. From the front view, the antihelix often eclipses the helix at the midpoint of the ear. Build up the antihelix if necessary. As you shape the ear, you may notice it has a tendency to splay out, getting larger and larger. If this is happening, just compress it back down to its correct dimensions. Remember that in general, the ear will occupy the middle third of the face between the columella and the superciliary arch, and will start at about the halfway point of the head in profile, or approximately 1/3 of the total height of the face back from the lateral angle of the eye. Working from the back of the ear, develop the separation between the concha and the helix, and between the concha and the head, building up the mastoid process if necessary. With brushes, compression tools, and small loops, work the ear together, amplifying the structural definition. Make small additions of clay as necessary. Once this initial pass is completed, the ears will have to stiffen up a bit before they can be further refined. Ears are very slight, and excessive moisture can quickly melt them down into mush. Final detailing will wait until after the bust is off the armature and reassembled. Next, in part 10, we'll move on to the eyes.